Or what if Chidi was blind? Think about it. If he couldn't see, we could be together right under his nose.
My eyes, I can't see.
Mr. Adebayo, I'm afraid the blindness may be permanent.
Chidi, what are you looking for? Is this not kitchen? No, Chidi, you shouldn't be going around.
The Eco Hotel suite overlooked the Atlantic Ocean, but neither Chioma nor Ikenna were admiring the view. They lay tangled in expensive sheets, their breathing still heavy from their afternoon encounter, the Lego sun casting golden light across their naked bodies. "We can't keep doing this," Chioma said, but her fingers traced lazy patterns on Ikenna's chest, contradicting her words. "It's been over a year. Eventually, someone will notice." Ikenna caught her hand, brought it to his lips. "Who's going to notice? Your brother thinks you're at the spa. Chidi thinks I'm at a business meeting. We've been doing this for 14 months, and no one suspects a thing. There have been close calls." Chioma sat up, her short natural hair tousled from their lovemaking. At 34, she was even more beautiful than when Chidi had married her 2 years ago. But now, in private moments like this, her face showed a hardness that never appeared in front of her husband. "Last week, when you touched my back at dinner, Obiora looked at us strangely. Your brother sees what he wants to see. A devoted sister caring for her husband and a loyal brother-in-law supporting his family." Ikenna stood, walking to the window, unashamed of his nakedness. At 35, he was slightly shorter than his older brother, but more muscular, his body honed by hours at the gym. Besides, Obiora worships Chidi. He'd never believe his precious friend could be betrayed by his own family. Chioma joined him at the window, pressing herself against his back. "Do you ever feel guilty? He's your brother. He trusts you completely." "He's always been my brother," Ikenna said, his voice hardening. "And he's always had everything. The inheritance from our father, the company, the success, the respect." He turned to face her. "And you? He got you too, even though I saw you first." It was true. 3 years ago, at a family gathering, Ikenna had noticed Chioma immediately. Obiora's beautiful sister, intelligent and charming. He'd planned to ask her out, but Chidi had moved faster. Within 3 months, they were dating. Within a year, engaged. Ikenna had attended the wedding with a smile on his face and rage in his heart. "I married him for security," Chioma admitted, something she'd never said aloud before. After watching Chidi expose Amara, seeing how he handled that situation with such intelligence and power, "I saw an opportunity. A wealthy, successful man who just learned to value genuine love. It was easy to be what he needed. The opposite of Amara. Kind, simple, real." She laughed bitterly. "But God, he's so boring, so careful, so traumatized by his past that he's afraid to fully live. And me?" Ikenna pulled her closer. "You're dangerous, exciting. You make love like you're trying to prove something." She kissed him deeply. "You make love like him, but better. Hungrier, more alive." They returned to the bed, and for another hour, the suite filled with sounds that would have destroyed Chidi if he'd heard them. Afterward, as they dressed, Chioma's phone buzzed. A text from Chidi. "How's the spa, my love? Obiora and I are finishing up the quarterly reviews. Dinner at home tonight? I'm cooking." She showed Ikenna the message. He read it and smirked. He's cooking. How domestic. He's trying so hard to be the perfect husband. It's almost sad. Chioma texted back a stream of heart emojis and affirmations of love. "How much longer do we do this?" Ikenna asked, buttoning his shirt. "Sneaking around, pretending, watching him touch you, knowing you're mine? Until we figure out a permanent solution." Chioma checked her makeup in the mirror, erasing all evidence of the afternoon's activities. "We can't just divorce or leave. There's too much money involved. Chidi's worth over 3 billion naira now. And as his wife and brother, we're positioned to inherit or control it all. But only if we're smart. What if..." Ikena hesitated, then continued. What if he couldn't see us? Chioma turned. What do you mean? I mean, what if Chitty was blind? Really blind, not just blind to our affair. Ikena's eyes held a dangerous gleam. Think about it. If he couldn't see, we could be together right under his nose. I could move into the penthouse to help my disabled brother. We'd have access to everything, his business, his accounts, his life. And he'd never know. Chioma stared at him, shocked. You're talking about deliberately making him blind? I'm talking about solving our problem permanently, and not just the seeing problem. Ikena moved closer, his voice dropping. Eventually, there could be an accident, a terrible tragedy. The blind billionaire, so dependent on his devoted wife and brother, has a fatal fall or takes the wrong medication. These things happen, and then you're a wealthy widow. I'm a grieving brother who steps in to run the company, and after a respectful mourning period, we can finally be together openly, Chioma finished, her shock transforming into something darker. Consideration. With all his money, all his power, everything that should have been mine from the beginning. Ikena said bitterly, I'm the younger brother, so I got nothing when our father died. Chitty got the inheritance, the business opportunities, everything. This is just evening the scales. Chioma was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold and practical. It would have to look like a random attack, something that can't be traced back to us. I know people who can make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Ikena pulled her close. Are you in? Chioma thought about the years stretching ahead. Years of pretending to love Chitty, of enduring his careful, predictable lovemaking, of playing a devoted wife while her body and heart belonged to his brother. Then she thought about freedom, about wealth, about being with the man she actually wanted. I'm in, she said, but it has to be perfect. Chitty's already been betrayed once. He's careful, observant. We can't make any mistakes. They spent another hour planning, their voices low and conspiratorial, plotting the destruction of the man who trusted them most in the world. That evening, Chitty Adebayo stood in his Ikoyi penthouse kitchen, preparing jollof rice and grilled fish, Chioma's favorites. At 40, he was 2 years older and perhaps a bit more gray at the temples, but he was happier than he'd been in years. The nightmare with Amara seemed like a distant memory now, a painful lesson that had led him to something real. The front door opened. Honey, I'm home. Chioma's voice was bright, cheerful. She entered the kitchen, radiant in a flowing dress, and kissed him deeply. Something smells amazing. The spa was wonderful, but I missed you. I missed you too. Chitty pulled her close, breathing in her perfume, the expensive one he'd bought her for their anniversary. How was it? Relaxing. Exactly what I needed. The lies came easily now. Obiora told me you two had a productive day. Very productive. The company's doing better than ever. He turned back to the stove. Ikena should be here soon. I invited him for dinner. Hope that's okay. Of course. Your brother is always welcome. Chioma set the table, playing the perfect wife. 20 minutes later, Ikena arrived, bringing expensive wine and his characteristic charm. Brother? Chioma. Sorry I'm late. Traffic on the mainland was murder. The three of them sat down to dinner, laughing and talking like the perfect family. Chitty looked at his wife and his brother, the two people he trusted most in the world, and felt a deep contentment. I'm so grateful for you both, he said, raising his glass. After everything I went through with Amara, I didn't know if I could trust again, but you two have shown me what real family and real love look like. Chioma squeezed his hand, her eyes warm and loving. We'll always be here for you, baby. Always. Ikena agreed, clinking glasses with his brother under the table. His foot found Chioma's, and she pressed back, a secret touch of conspiracy and desire. They discussed a charity gala schedule for that weekend, a fundraiser for visual impairment research that Chitty was passionate about. All three would attend together. It's important work, Chitty said. Blindness can destroy lives. I can't imagine not being able to see the people I love. Chioma and Ikena exchanged a glance so brief that Chitty missed it entirely. After dinner, Ikena helped clean up while Chioma excused herself to take a call. In the kitchen, Ikena whispered his brother, "You're a lucky man, Chitty. Chioma is special." "I know," Chitty said, smiling. "I thank God every day for bringing her into my life. And for you, little brother, having you as VP of the company, seeing you succeed, it makes everything worth it." Ikena smiled back, the perfect picture of brotherly devotion. But inside, the words burned. Little brother, always a little brother, living in Chitty's shadow, not for much longer. The gala on Saturday was spectacular. The ballroom of the Eco Hotel glittered with Lagos's elite, all gathered to support the Foundation for Visual Health. Chitty, resplendent in a custom tuxedo, gave a moving speech about the importance of sight and the devastating impact of blindness. To lose one's vision is to lose independence, security, connection, he told the audience. It's a darkness that extends beyond the physical. We must do everything we can prevent and treat visual impairment. Chioma, stunning in an emerald green gown, applauded with everyone else, her face a picture of wifely pride. Ikena, handsome in his gray suit, stood near the bar, watching. As the evening wound down, the three of them decided to leave together. Chitty had drunk a bit more champagne than usual and was relaxed, happy. They walked out to the parking garage, laughing about something one of the guests had said. They didn't notice the three men waiting in the shadows. Mr. Adebayo. One of them stepped forward, wearing a mask. "Your money and phones. Now." Chitty instinctively stepped in front of Chioma. "Take whatever you want. Just don't hurt." "No." Ikena shouted, launching himself at the lead robber in what appeared to be a heroic defense of his family. In the chaos that followed, Chioma screaming, Ikena fighting, security alarms blaring, one of the robbers pulled out a small bottle. He grabbed Chitty's head, and before anyone could stop him, sprayed a clear liquid directly into Chitty's eyes. The pain was instantaneous and excruciating. Chitty screamed, his hands flying to his face. The liquid burned like fire, like acid eating through his eyes. He felt his knees, unable to see anything but white-hot agony. "Chitty? Chitty!" Chioma was beside him. Her voice panicked. "Oh, God, what did they spray? Someone help." "I've got you, brother. I've got you." Ikena's arms were around him, holding him up. "Security! Call an ambulance. My brother's been attacked." Through the searing pain, Chitty felt his brother's strong arms supporting him, heard his wife's terrified cries. The last thing he registered before passing out from the pain was a thought. Thank God for family. They're here. They'll protect me. He had no idea that the men who'd attacked him had been paid by his brother, that the chemical weapon had been carefully sourced to cause maximum damage, that the woman crying over him had helped plan every detail. As Chitty lost consciousness, his world going dark, Ikena and Chioma exchanged a glance over his body. It had begun. This is just the beginning. Will Chitty survive? What will happen to him? Smash that like button and subscribe to AfricanTales by Zion to find out what happens next. Drop a comment. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Chitty woke in a hospital to absolute darkness. Not the darkness of closed eyes, but the impenetrable blackness of true blindness. Panic seized him immediately. Chioma? Ikena? Is someone there? I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Chioma's hand found his. Squeeze it. Her voice was thick with tears. Real or performed, it was impossible to tell. The doctors are hopeful. They're doing everything they can. Dr. Adeyemi, the ophthalmologist, delivered the devastating news that afternoon. Mr. Adebayo, the chemical used in the attack was industrial-grade acidic compound. It's caused severe damage to your corneas and optic nerves. We've done what we can to minimize the damage, but... He paused. I'm afraid the blindness may be permanent. Permanent? Chitty's voice cracked. You're saying I'll never see again? The human eye is remarkably resilient, and medical science is advancing rapidly. But I need you to prepare for the possibility that this could be your new reality. Chioma sobbed convincingly. Ikena stood at the foot of the bed, his hand on his brother's leg. We'll get through this together, brother. Whatever you need, I'm here. The police came to take statements. All three described a random attack, robbers targeting wealthy gala attendees. Ikenna was praised for his bravery in fighting them off, though he'd unfortunately been unable to prevent them from spraying the chemical. "Did you get a good look at them?" the detective asked. "They wore masks," Ikenna said. "It all happened so fast. I tried to stop them, but—" His voice broke convincingly. "I couldn't protect my brother." "You did your best," the detective assured him. "We'll do everything we can to find them." But they wouldn't find them. The men had already left the country with their payment, their role in the conspiracy complete. Over the following weeks, Chitty adjusted to his new reality. The physical pain faded, but the psychological darkness was worse. He'd been through so much: Amar's betrayal, the constant vigilance, learning to trust again, and now this. Random violence had stolen his sight, but he wasn't alone. Chioma and Ikenna were there constantly. "I'm moving into the guest room," Ikenna announced. "You need someone here full time. Chioma's amazing, but you need help navigating the business too." "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm insisting." Ikenna's voice was firm. "You're my brother. This is what family does." Obiora visited regularly, his face gray with shock and sympathy. "I can't believe this happened. After everything you've been through. But Chitty, I'm in awe of how my sister is handling this. She's been incredible." "She has," Chitty agreed, and she had been, at first, attentive, patient, helping him relearn his own home. But lately, he'd noticed changes. Small things. Sometimes her voice would be warm and loving, but other times, when she thought he couldn't hear or wasn't paying attention, it became flat, impatient. "Chitty, the coffee machine is right there. I showed you yesterday." A sigh of frustration. "You really need to start remembering these things." "Sorry, I'm trying." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. I'm just tired." Back to sweetness. "Let me help you." And there were other things. Sounds in the night that didn't quite make sense. Whispered conversations that stopped when he entered a room. The way Chioma's perfume sometimes smelled different, like someone else had been close to her. And Ikenna, his brother's presence in the house, should have been comforting, but sometimes Chitty sensed something off. The way Ikenna's voice sounded when he talked to Chioma. Too familiar, too intimate. The way they move around each other in the kitchen. Their footsteps coordinated in a way that suggested physical awareness of each other's presence. But Chitty couldn't see, couldn't prove anything. And after everything with Amara, he was terrified of being paranoid, of seeing betrayal where there was only devotion. Besides, they were helping him. Ikenna was managing the business, making decisions, keeping things running. Chioma was caring for him physically, emotionally. They'd rearranged their entire lives for him, hadn't they? One afternoon, Chitty sat in the living room, supposedly reading a Braille book that Chioma had ordered for him. But he wasn't reading. He was listening. Chioma and Ikenna were in the kitchen. Their voices were low, but sound carried in the penthouse's open floor plan. "Can't believe how easy this is," Chioma was saying. "I told you, he can't see anything. We could do it right in front of him." Ikenna's voice held amusement. "Still, we should be careful. At least until—" They noticed Chitty shifting in his chair and immediately went silent. A moment later, Chioma appeared at his side. "Baby, are you comfortable? Do you need anything?" "I'm fine," Chitty said. "What were you two talking about?" "Just boring business stuff. Ikenna was updating me on some contracts." Her hand touched his shoulder. "Nothing you need to worry about." But Chitty did worry, because something was wrong. He could feel it, even if he couldn't see it. That night, he heard sounds from down the hall. His bedroom was at one end of the penthouse, the guest room where Ikenna was supposedly staying at the other. But the sounds weren't coming from the guest room. They were coming from closer, from the direction of the spare bedroom. Chitty got up carefully, using the wall for guidance as he'd been taught. He moved quietly through the hallway, following the sounds. Soft at first, then louder, rhythmic, intimate. Oh, God! He stood outside the spare bedroom door, his heart pounding. He couldn't see, couldn't prove what he was hearing. But he knew, somewhere deep in his soul, he knew when he returned to his own bedroom. Chioma was there, apparently just coming out of the bathroom. Baby, where were you? I needed to use the bathroom. Got turned around in the dark. He forced a smile, still getting used to navigating by touch. Poor thing. Come on, let me tuck you in. She helped him into bed, kissed his forehead, told him she loved him. And all the while, Chitty wondered if he'd imagined it, if his trauma with Amara was making him paranoid, if he was losing his mind along with his sight. 3 months passed. 3 months of darkness. 3 months of subtle changes that Chitty noticed but couldn't verify. Ikenna had taken over more and more of the business. Just temporarily, he assured Chitty. Until you're ready to come back full-time. I'm just keeping things running smoothly. But Obiora had mentioned, carefully, that some unusual transfers had been happening. Probably nothing, but Ikenna's been moving money to offshore accounts. Says it's for tax optimization, but it seems aggressive. Should I be worried? Chitty had asked. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. But Chitty, I think we should bring in an external auditor, just to be safe. That seems like I don't trust my own brother. After Amara, can you blame me for being cautious? Obiora had said, trust but verify. That's all I'm saying. And there was his relationship with Chioma. She still said all the right words, did all the right things, but sometimes when they made love, he sensed her distance. Her body was there, but her mind was elsewhere. And afterward, she'd leave quickly, saying she needed a shower, to check on something, to make a call. Once, lying in the post-coital silence, Chitty had reached for her and found her side of the bed already empty. He'd called out, and she'd answered from what sounded like down the hall. Just getting some water, baby. Go to sleep. But why would she get water from the kitchen at the far end of the hall instead of their bathroom? Chitty was drowning in suspicions he couldn't prove, in a darkness that went beyond his missing vision. Then, one morning, everything changed. Chitty woke early, as he often did. The loss of sight had disrupted his sleep patterns. He lay in bed, waiting for the sounds of morning, when he noticed something strange. Light, just the faintest perception of light. His heart began to race. He blinked rapidly. Yes, definitely light. Not shapes yet, but the difference between light and dark. His eyes were registering something. He didn't move, didn't call out. Instead, he lay perfectly still, testing his vision. By the time Chioma woke an hour later, Chitty could see dim shapes, blurry and distinct, but there, his vision was returning. The doctors had said it was impossible, permanent damage. But somehow, miraculously, his optic nerves were regenerating. He said nothing. Some instinct, the same instinct that had saved him from Amara, told him to wait, to watch, to see what he would see. By evening, his vision had improved to the point where he could make out faces, read large print. It was like coming out of a fog, the world materializing around him in increasing detail. He couldn't contain his joy. He had to tell Chioma, share this miracle with her, show her that they'd overcome this tragedy together. Still wearing his dark sunglasses, he'd worn them constantly, as the doctors had recommended for light sensitivity. Chitty got up from his bed around 10 p.m. Chioma had said she was in bed early, tired from a long day. He walked down the hallway, no longer needing to use the wall for guidance. He could see. He could finally see. He approached their bedroom, intending to burst in with the incredible news. The door was slightly ajar. Light spilled out, and through the gap, Chitty saw something that stopped him dead. His wife, naked, in their bed, with a man on top of her. His brother. Ikenna. Chioma's head was thrown back, her face a mass of pleasure. Yes, she moaned. God, yes, Ikenna. You feel so good. So much better than him. Always so much better. Ikenna's voice was breathless. Worth waiting for. Worth everything. She pulled him down for a deep kiss. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Soon, Ikenna promised. Once I've secured enough assets, we can arrange the next accident. Make it look natural. A blind man taking the wrong medication. These things happen. And then we're free. rich and free. Chioma laughed, a sound nothing like the gentle laugh Chitty had fallen in love with. This was harsh, cold. God, I'm so tired of pretending to love him, of letting him touch me with those pathetic, grateful hands. Chitty stood frozen in the hallway, his newly restored vision showing him the worst sight imaginable. Not just his wife's infidelity, not just his brother's betrayal, but the knowledge that they'd planned his blindness, that they were planning his death. His hand tightened on the flower vase on the hallway table. Before he could think, before he could process, his fingers knocked it over. Crash! The vase shattered on the marble floor, the sound explosive in the quiet penthouse. Inside the bedroom, chaos. Scrambling. Chioma's voice, "Oh, God, was that?" Chitty's mind raced. He grabbed his white cane from where it leaned against the wall, put his hand out like he was trying to orient himself in darkness. The bedroom door flew open. Chioma stood there, wrapped in a silk robe, her hair disheveled. Behind her, Ikenna was pulling on his pants, his shirt still off. "Chitty?" Chioma's voice was high with panic. "What are you doing out here?" Chitty turned toward her voice, his face behind the dark glasses, showing confusion. I was thirsty. I wanted to get water from the kitchen. I must have gotten turned around. I'm sorry. I think I knocked something over." Ikenna appeared in the doorway, now wearing his shirt. "Brother, you're nowhere near the kitchen. You're at the bedroom wing." "Am I?" Chitty swayed slightly, playing up his disorientation. "I thought the kitchen was this way." Chioma's face transformed from panic to relief. She came forward, taking his arm gently. "Baby, let me help you. You could hurt yourself wandering around like this." As she led him back toward his bedroom, Chitty heard Ikenna whisper behind them, "That was close." And Chioma's whisper response, "Relax. He's blind. He can't see us. He didn't see anything." They settled Chitty back in his bed. Chioma brought him water, kissed his forehead, told him she loved him. "You scared me, wandering around in the dark," she said softly. "Please, next time, just call me. I'll help you." "I will," Chitty promised. "I'm sorry." After she left, Chitty lay in the darkness, no longer blind, but pretending to be. His mind raced with what he'd seen, what he'd heard. His wife, his brother. Not just an affair, but a conspiracy. They'd made him blind deliberately, and they were planning to kill him. The betrayal cut deeper than Amara's ever had. This was his wife, the woman he'd thought was different, genuine, his reward for surviving the first nightmare. And his own blood, his little brother. But now Chitty had something they didn't know about, his vision, and he was going to use it to see everything. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered plot, and then he was going to destroy them both. But he'd need proof, undeniable proof, and for that, he needed to be smart, smarter than he'd been with Amara. As he lay in the darkness, pretending to sleep, Chitty began to plan. They think he's blind, but he sees everything. What will Chitty do now? Like and subscribe to African Tales by Zion to see his revenge. Comment, how would you expose them? The next morning, Chitty put on his performance. He dressed slowly, fumbling with his clothes as a blind man would. He used his cane to navigate to the bathroom, to the kitchen. When Chioma and Ikenna entered the room, he turned toward their voices rather than their actual positions. "Good morning, family," he said with a smile. "Good morning, baby." Chioma kissed his cheek. Behind his dark glasses, Chitty watched her face. So perfectly loving, so completely false. "Morning, brother." Ikenna clapped him on the shoulder. "Sleep well after your midnight wandering?" "Like a baby," Chitty lied. He'd barely slept at all. After breakfast, when both Chioma and Ikenna had left for their respective errands, probably another hotel rendezvous, Chitty called the one person he could trust. Obiora arrived within the hour. "What's wrong?" Obiora could hear the tension in his friend's voice. "Are you okay?" "Close the door." Chitty waited until he heard it click shut. Then, slowly, he removed his sunglasses. Obiora gasped. "Your eyes?" "Chitty, can you?" "I can see." Chitty's voice was flat, emotionless. My vision returned yesterday morning. Completely. Miraculously. That's incredible. Why do you look like someone died? Because something did die, Obiora. My ability to trust. My faith in family. Chitty took a shaky breath. I can see. And yesterday, I saw my wife in our bed with my brother. The silence that followed was deafening. Obiora's face went through a series of expressions: shock, denial, horror, and finally, devastation. No, not Chioma. Not my sister. She wouldn't. She would. She did. And they're planning to kill me. Obiora. I heard them discussing it. Once Ikenna has secured enough of my assets, I'm going to have an accident with my medication. Obiora sat down heavily. This can't be real. This can't be happening. It's happening, and I need your help. Chitty leaned forward. I need proof. Real, undeniable proof. Video, audio, documentation of everything they're doing. How? If they think you're blind. They think I'm blind, which means they'll be careless. Chitty pulled out his phone. He'd been practicing using it by touch all morning. I need you to arrange something for me. Camera glasses, spy glasses, the kind that record video and audio, but look like normal prescription sunglasses. You want to record them? I want to see everything. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered plot. And I want it documented so thoroughly that there's no way they can deny it. Chitty's jaw tightened. Amar was bad, but this is my wife. My brother. They blinded me deliberately. Obiora. They hired those men to attack me. My sister. Obiora's voice broke. My own sister did this to you. Chitty, I'm so sorry. I brought her into your life. I told you she was different. You couldn't have known. I couldn't have known. They played us all. Chitty put a hand on his friend's shoulder. But we're going to stop them. Can you get the glasses? I'll have them by tomorrow. Top of the line. Video and audio, hours of recording time. Obiora wiped his eyes. What about your mother? Does she know? No one can know. Not yet. When the time comes, I want it to be a complete surprise. Chitty put his regular sunglasses back on. And Obiora? Act normal around Chioma. She can't suspect that we know. I don't know if I can look at her without. You have to, for just a little while longer, until we have everything we need. After Obiora left, Chitty spent the rest of the day practicing, being blind, moving through his home with apparent uncertainty, calling out for help, positioning himself in places where, if he was truly blind, he wouldn't notice what was happening around him. That evening, Chioma returned from her errands. Her hair was freshly styled, her makeup perfect, but under his watchful gaze hidden behind dark glasses, Chitty noticed the faint marks on her neck that she tried to cover with foundation, marks his brother's mouth had made. How was your day? She asked, kissing him lightly. Quiet. Boring. He smiled at her. How was the spa? Wonderful. Very relaxing. More lies, delivered with perfect ease. They had dinner together. Just the two of them, as Ikenna was supposedly working late at the office. Chioma was attentive, loving. She cut Chitty's food for him, helped him find his water glass, touched his hand constantly. I love you so much, she said. I know this has been hard, but we'll get through it together. I'm not going anywhere. I know, Chitty said. Behind his glasses, his eyes were cold. I'm so lucky to have you. After dinner, as Chioma cleaned up in the kitchen, Chitty heard her phone buzz. She pulled it out, read something, and smiled, that real smile, the one she never gave him anymore. Then she typed a response, her fingers flying. Everything okay? Chitty called out. She jumped slightly. Yes, just Obiora checking in. She came back to the living room. You know how protective he is. Liar. The next day, Obiora returned with a package. The camera glasses looked exactly like the designer sunglasses Chitty normally wore, sleek black frames with dark lenses. But hidden in the frames were tiny high-definition cameras, and the temples contained sensitive microphones. They record internal storage. Obiora explained quietly, showing Chitty how to operate them. 8 hours of continuous recording. You charge them at night like regular electronics. The cameras are completely invisible. Perfect. Chitty put them on. They felt identical to his regular glasses. No one will suspect. They think you're blind. They won't look twice at your glasses. They're just glasses. From that moment on, Chitty wore the camera glasses constantly, and he saw everything. The first full day of recording was devastating. In the morning, Chioma helped him dress, her hands gentle and patient. But the moment she thought he was occupied in the bathroom, he heard her on the phone in the bedroom. Tonight, he's going to a physiotherapy appointment. We'll have 2 hours. A pause. I can't wait either. God, I need you. That afternoon, Ikenna came by for lunch. The three of them sat at the dining table, eating and chatting. And under the table, where Chitty supposedly couldn't see, Ikenna's foot found Chioma's, their legs intertwined. At one point, when Chitty got up to supposedly use the bathroom, he deliberately walked slowly, his cane tapping, and he saw, through the camera glasses, Ikenna reach across the table and squeeze Chioma's hand. She brought it to her lips and kissed it. That evening, during Chitty's physiotherapy appointment, which he maintained to keep up the blind person routine, he knew they were together in his home, in his bed. The camera glasses were charging in his bedroom, but he'd set up other cameras, tiny ones that Obiora had installed in various rooms. When he returned home, Chioma greeted him with a bright smile and slightly damp hair. I took a shower while you were gone. Hope you don't mind. Of course not. He leaned in to kiss her and smelled his brother's cologne on her skin. Over the following weeks, Chitty documented everything. Chioma and Ikenna kissing in the kitchen, while Chitty sat in the living room reading a Braille book. They thought the distance and his blindness made them safe. The camera glasses captured every moment. Ikenna touching Chioma's backside as she walked past in the hallway. Chioma's laugh as she whispered, "Not now, he's right there." Chitty was right there, pretending to be asleep on the couch. Their conversations about money. Ikenna explaining how he'd been moving Chitty's assets to offshore accounts. By the time anyone notices, it'll be too late. And the blind fool signs anything I put in front of him. Chioma complaining about having to have sex with Chitty. It's so pathetic. He's so grateful, so gentle. I just want to throw him off me and tell him to get it over with. Their plans for his death, discussed over wine in the penthouse while Chitty was supposedly napping in his room. An overdose of his blood pressure medication. The doctor already thinks he's confused, mixing up his pills. It'll look like a tragic accident. The blind man who couldn't see what he was taking. Every word, every touch, every betrayal, captured in high-definition video and crystal-clear audio. But the worst recordings were the ones of them making love. Chitty had to endure seeing it, hearing it, watching his wife with his brother in the most intimate way possible. One afternoon, Chitty deliberately walked into the living room where they were on the couch, going at it passionately. They didn't hear him approaching because they were too caught up in each other. "Oops, sorry." Chitty said, turning away. "I thought this was a bathroom." They scrambled apart. "Chitty?" Chioma's voice was breathless. Ikenna and I were discussing the quarterly reports." "Very thoroughly, it seems," Chitty said with a small smile. "I'll leave you to it." After he'd left, he heard Ikenna whisper, "He's so clueless. We could do it right in front of him, and he wouldn't know." "Don't get cocky," Chioma warned. "Just a few more weeks. Then he's gone and we're free." 3 months. 3 months of documentation. 3 months of watching his wife and brother betray him in every way possible. The psychological toll was immense. Chitty had to maintain his performance while watching the two people he loved most destroy him. Every kind word from Chioma was a knife. Every brotherly pat on the back from Ikenna was poison, but he endured because justice required it. He met with Obiora regularly, showing him the footage. Obiora watched with a mixture of horror and heartbreak. "My sister," he kept saying. "I can't believe my own sister." They also met with lawyers, quietly, carefully, building a case that would be ironclad. Conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, attempted murder, fraud. Embezzlement. The evidence is overwhelming, the lead lawyer said. With these recordings, there's no defense. None. Good, Chitty said, because I want them to face everything, every consequence. He also met with Dr. Adeyemi, who was astounded by Chitty's recovered vision. This is medically remarkable, the doctor said. I've never seen optic nerve regeneration like this. It's a miracle, Chitty agreed, but I need you to keep it quiet. For now, let everyone think I'm still blind. May I ask why? Because, Chitty said coldly, I need to see exactly what people do when they think I can't see them. The doctor, sensing something deeper, agreed. Finally, Chitty had everything he needed. Hours of footage. Financial records showing Ikenna's theft. Medical records proving the attack was designed to blind him. Testimony from the doctor about the unusual nature of the chemical used. Even testimony from one of the attackers, whom Obiora's private investigators had tracked down and convinced to talk in exchange for immunity. It was time for the final act. Chitty called his mother, Ada Adebayo, in Enugu. Mama, I want to organize a family gathering, a celebration. A celebration of what, my son? Of acceptance, of gratitude. I've been blind for months, and I've struggled. But Chioma and Ikenna have been so devoted, so loving. I want to thank them publicly, in front of the whole family. Ada was thrilled. That's wonderful, Chitty. Your brother and your wife have been rocks for you. We'll have a big gathering at the compound. Everyone will come. Perfect. 2 weeks from Saturday. After hanging up, Chitty called Ikenna and Chioma together. I have something to tell you both. They came into the living room, where Chitty sat on the couch, his camera glasses recording as always. I've been thinking about how lucky I am, Chitty said. After everything that happened, I could have lost hope, but you too have been my light in the darkness. Literally. Chioma sat beside him, taking his hand. We love you, baby. And I love you both, which is why I want to organize a family gathering. A big celebration at my mother's compound in Enugu. I want to thank you publicly, in front of everyone, for everything you've done for me. Ikenna and Chioma exchanged glances Chitty saw perfectly through his glasses. That's not necessary, brother, Ikenna said. It is to me. Please. 2 weeks from Saturday. The whole family will be there. I want everyone to see how blessed I am. Chioma squeezed his hand. Of course, baby. Whatever you want. After they left the room, Chitty heard them in the kitchen. This is perfect, Ikenna whispered. Everyone together, after this public show of gratitude. If something were to happen to him, it would be even more tragic, Chioma finished. And no one would ever suspect us. We'll be the grieving widow and brother. Exactly. Chitty smiled behind his dark glasses. Let them think they'd won. Let them believe their victory was near. Because in 2 weeks, at that family gathering, he was going to remove these glasses. And everyone, his mother, his family, his wife, his brother, would finally see what he'd been seeing all along. The truth. Chitty has everything on camera. The showdown is coming. Smash that like button and subscribe to AfricanTales by Zion for the epic confrontation. Comment, what should Chitty say when he reveals he can see? The Adebayo family compound in Enugu was magnificent. Set on 5 acres of lush land, the main house was a sprawling structure that could accommodate dozens of guests. Ada Adebayo had spared no expense for her son's gratitude celebration. Chitty arrived with Chioma and Ikenna on Friday evening. The compound was already buzzing with activity, extended family members arriving from across Nigeria, caterers setting up, decorators transforming the grounds. It's beautiful, Mama, Chitty said, embracing his mother. Behind his dark camera glasses, he studied her face, aged but still strong, loving but oblivious to the vipers in her midst. Anything for my son, Ada said, touching his cheek. After everything you've been through, you deserve this moment of joy. That evening, more family arrived. Chitty's cousins, aunts, uncles, people who'd known him and Ikenna since they were boys. They greeted Chitty with sympathy and admiration, and praised Chioma and Ikenna effusively. Your wife is a saint, his Aunt Ngozi said, standing by you through this tragedy. And your brother, his Uncle Emeka added, putting his own life on hold to help you. You raised him well, Ada. Ikenna stood nearby, accepting the praise with humble smiles. Chioma played her role perfectly, the devoted wife, gently guiding Chidi, anticipating his needs, ever watchful. But that night, when they thought Chidi was asleep in his room, he heard them on the balcony overlooking the compound. This is excruciating, Chioma whispered. Everyone going on and on about how devoted we are. Just one more day, Ikenna assured her. Tomorrow, he gives a speech, thanks us publicly, and then we accelerate the timeline. Maybe a tragic fall down the stairs next week. Or we stick with the medication plan. Either way, by next month, you're a widow and I'm running the company. And we can finally be together openly, with all his money, everything he has. They kissed, long and deep, while below in his room. Chidi recorded every word to the camera glasses he left on the balcony table, positioned perfectly to capture their conversation. Saturday dawned bright and clear. The compound filled with nearly 100 guests, family, friends, business associates. Long tables groaned with food. A live band played. Children ran through the gardens, laughing. Obiora had arrived early and helped Chidi with the final preparations. In a locked room in the back of the house, they'd set up the equipment. Large screen, speakers, a laptop connected to all of Chidi's recordings. Are you sure about this? Obiora asked. In front of your mother, in front of everyone. They need to see, Chidi said. All of them. Not just a betrayal, but the depth of it, the premeditation, the cruelty. He paused. And Obiora, I'm sorry. I know this will destroy you too. She stopped being my sister the moment she did this to you. Obiora said quietly, let's finish it. The plan was simple. Chidi would give a speech, thanking everyone for their support. He'd specifically thank Chioma and Ikenna. Then, before anyone could react, Obiora would start playing recordings on the screens they'd hidden around the compound, and Chidi would remove his glasses. At 4 p.m., everyone gathered in the main courtyard. A small stage had been set up with a microphone. Chidi stood backstage with Chioma and Ikenna, his white cane in hand, his dark camera glasses on. You ready, baby? Chioma adjusted his collar, her touch gentle. I'm ready. Behind the glasses, Chidi's eyes were ice. We're so proud of you, brother, Ikenna said. This takes courage. You have no idea how much courage this takes, Chidi replied. The gathering quieted as Ada stepped to the microphone. Family, friends, thank you all for being here today. My son Chidi has asked to speak to you all, to share his gratitude for the support he's received during this difficult time. Please welcome Chidi Adebayo. Applause filled the compound. Obiora helped guide Chidi to the stage, then melted into the background, moving toward the equipment room. Chidi stood at the microphone, his camera glasses recording the sea of faces before him. His mother in the front row, beaming with pride. His family, his friends, all gathered to celebrate what they thought was a story of resilience and family devotion. Thank you all for coming, Chidi began. These past months have been the darkest of my life. Literally. Sympathetic laughter. When I was attacked and lost my sight, I thought my life was over. I couldn't imagine navigating the world in darkness. But I had help. I had support. I had love. He turned toward where Chioma and Ikenna stood at the edge of the stage. Particularly for my wife Chioma and my brother Ikenna. They've been my eyes when I couldn't see. They've been my strength when I was weak. They've sacrificed so much for me. Applause. People dabbing at tears. I want to thank them publicly because their devotion has been remarkable. Chidi's voice hardened slightly, but no one seemed to notice. They've been with me every day, every night. Sometimes, even when I didn't know they were there. Chioma frowned slightly. Something in his tone. They've made decisions for me, moved money for me, taken care of things I supposedly couldn't handle anymore. Chidi's hand moved to his sunglasses. They've been so careful, so meticulous, so certain that I couldn't see what they were doing. Chidi, Ikenna took a step forward. Brother, were you? But here's the thing about darkness, Chitty continued, his voice rising. Sometimes it's temporary. Sometimes miraculously, impossibly, light returns. He removed his sunglasses. His eyes, clear, seeing, burning with fury, swept across the crowd, then locked onto Chioma and Ikena. The compound went silent. You could hear a pin drop. I can see, Chitty said quietly. I've been able to see for 3 months, and I've seen everything. Chioma's face went white. Ikena looked like he'd been punched. What are you talking about? Chioma's voice was shrill. Baby, you can't see. The doctors said. The doctors were wrong. My vision returned miraculously, and I didn't tell anyone, because I wanted to see what people would do when they thought I was blind. Chitty's smile was cold, particularly my devoted wife and my loyal brother. This is crazy, Ikena said, looking at the crowd. He's confused. The trauma. I'm not confused. Chitty gestured to Obiora, who pressed a button on his laptop. The screens positioned around the compound lit up simultaneously, and the footage began to play. First, Chioma and Ikena in the hotel room, discussing their affair. Audio crystal clear. He's so boring. You make love like him, but better. Gasps from the crowd. Ada stood up, her hand over her mouth. Second, the plot to blind Chitty. What if he couldn't see us? We could be together right under his nose. Screams now. Family members standing, pointing at the screens in horror. Third, footage from inside the penthouse. Chioma and Ikena kissing the kitchen while Chitty sat in the next room, touching each other at the dinner table, making love on the living room couch. Someone vomited. Ada collapsed back into her chair, weeping. Fourth, their conversations about killing Chitty. An overdose of his blood pressure medication. It'll look like an accident. The crowd erupted, people shouting, crying, pressing forward. Chitty's cousins had to physically restrain his uncle Emeka, who was trying to get to Ikena. Through it all, Chitty stood at the microphone watching, not celebrating, not crying, just watching justice unfold. On the screens, the final clip played. Chioma and Ikena on the balcony last night, discussing accelerating Chitty's murder. When the screens finally went dark, the silence was deafening. Chitty looked at his wife and his brother. Both were frozen, their faces masks of horror. You're blind, Chioma whispered. You can't see. How could you? I've been wearing camera glasses, Chitty said, holding them up. You thought they were just dark glasses to protect my sensitive eyes. But they were recording everything. Every touch, every kiss, every plot to steal my money and end my life. This is illegal. Ikena found his voice. Recording people without consent is perfectly legal when documenting crimes in progress, said a new voice. Detective Aminu stepped out from the crowd, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, Mr. Ikena Adebayo, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, attempted murder, and fraud. No. Chioma lunged toward Chitty. You don't understand. I do love you. Ikena manipulated me, Save it for your lawyer. Detective Aminu said as officers moved in with handcuffs. Ada finally found her voice. Ikena? My son? You did this to your brother? Ikena looked at his mother, at Chitty, at the crowd of family members staring at him with disgust and horror. For a moment, his mask slipped completely. No more charming smile. No more brotherly devotion. Just rage and jealousy, naked and ugly. You've always had everything, he shouted at Chitty. Dad's inheritance, the company, everyone's respect. I'm your brother. I deserve those things too. But it was always Chitty, always the golden son, always. You were my brother, Chitty interrupted, his voice breaking for the first time. I trusted you. I loved you. I would have given you anything if you'd just asked. But you chose to betray me instead. You chose to blind me, to try to kill me. We're brothers, Ikena said desperately as the officers cuffed him. Blood. You can't do this to Blood. You stopped being my brother when you hired those men to throw acid in my eyes. Chitty turned away. Get them out of my sight. As Chioma and Ikena were led away, Chioma screamed, "He's blind. He can't see. He's lying. He can't see us." But everyone had seen the footage. Everyone had heard the confessions. There was no denial, no escape. Obiora appeared at Chidi's side as his sister was taken away. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "I'm so sorry. You didn't do this." "She did." Chidi put a hand on his friend's shoulder. "Some family betrays you. Other family stands with you. You've always stood with me." Ada Adebayo climbed onto the stage, tears streaming down her face. She looked at her eldest son, her eyes really seeing him now, seeing his strength, his pain, his incredible resilience. "My son," she whispered, "what they did to you." "I survived, Mama." Chidi embraced her. "I survived. You did more than survive." Ada pulled back, cupping his face. "You won. You saw the truth and you fought back. I'm so proud of you." Around them, the compound buzzed with activity. Police securing evidence. Family members in shock. Children crying, not understanding what was happening. Chidi stood in the center of it all, his sight restored, his betrayers exposed, his life reclaimed. But he felt no triumph, only exhaustion and profound sadness. He'd been betrayed by 2 women he loved, by his own brother. Twice now, he'd given his heart and had it destroyed. How many times could one man survive having his trust shattered before he couldn't trust anyone ever again? Justice. But at what cost? The final chapter reveals the consequences. Like and subscribe to AfricanTales by Zion for conclusion. Comment. Do you think Chidi can ever trust anyone again? The trial lasted 3 months, but the outcome was never in doubt. The evidence was overwhelming, damning, and impossible to refute. Chidi sat in the Lagos High Court every day, watching as his wife and brother's crimes were laid bare before judge, jury, and the public. The courtroom was packed daily with media, curious onlookers, and family members, some supporting Chidi, others unable to believe what Ikena had done. The prosecution presented the footage systematically, not the intimate moments. Those were played in closed session due to their graphic nature. But everything else, the conspiracies, the plans, the admission that they'd hired the men who blinded Chidi. And that's where the case became truly criminal. The attackers had been found. One of them, facing charges in an unrelated case, had agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. He took the stand and confirmed that Ikena had hired them, had provided the industrial acid, had specified that it should be sprayed directly into Chidi's eyes. He said it had to be permanent, the man testified. He said his brother could never be allowed to see again. The medical testimony was equally damning. Dr. Adeyemi explained the nature of the chemical used, not something available to the public, but an industrial compound that had to be specially sourced. The kind of compound that would cause maximum damage with minimal chance of recovery. This was not a random attack, Dr. Adeyemi said. This was a targeted assault designed to permanently blind Mr. Adebayo. The financial evidence showed Ikena's systematic theft. Over 18 months, he'd embezzled over 200 million naira from Chidi's accounts, moving it to offshore holdings. He'd falsified documents, forged Chidi's signature, and used his position as VP to authorize transfers that only benefited himself. Chioma's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been manipulated by Ikena, that she was a victim too, but the recordings destroyed that defense. In her own voice, she discussed a plan to kill Chidi with cold calculation. She talked about his death like it was a business transaction. "The jury needs to understand," her lawyer pleaded, "that my client was in an emotionally vulnerable position." Vulnerable? The prosecutor interrupted. She was caught on tape laughing about how pathetic her husband was. She discussed murdering him for his money. Where's the vulnerability in cold-blooded conspiracy? The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was held 2 weeks later. Chidi sat in the front row, flanked by Obiora and his mother. He watched as Chioma and Ikena were brought in, both wearing prison jumpsuits, both looking dramatically different from the confident schemers who'd plotted his death. Chioma had lost weight. Her hair, once perfectly styled, was pulled back simply. She looked smaller, diminished. When she saw Chidi, she tried to catch his eye. try to communicate something. Regret? Pleading? Chitty looked away. Ikenna looked worse. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. Prison had not been kind to the former VP of a billion-naira company. He stared straight ahead, not meeting anyone's gaze. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the case summary. Then she looked at Chioma and Ikenna with unconcealed disgust. "This is one of the most callous cases I've encountered in my career," she said. "The betrayal here goes beyond simple greed. It strikes at the heart of family, of love, of trust. Mr. Adebayo was not just robbed of his sight and his money. He was robbed of his faith in the people closest to him." She turned to Chioma. "Mrs. Adebayo, you marry a man who'd already been betrayed once. You knew his history, his trauma, his difficulty trusting, and you used that knowledge to exploit him. You pretended to be his salvation when you were actually planning his destruction. I find your actions particularly heinous." Chioma's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, if I may—" "You may not. I've heard enough excuses." The judge looked at her papers. "Chioma Adebayo, I sentence you to 12 years in prison for conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. You will serve a minimum of 8 years before being eligible for parole." Chioma collapsed, sobbing. "Please, I have a family. You had a husband. You plotted to kill him. Take her away." The judge then turned to Ikenna. "Mr. Ikenna Adebayo, you are perhaps the more tragic figure in this case. You are blood. You are family. And you betrayed your brother in the worst possible way. You hired men to permanently blind him. You stole from him. You committed adultery with his wife under his own roof. And you planned his murder." Ikenna finally looked up. "Your Honor, if I could—" "You'll have your chance to speak momentarily. But first, hear your sentence. For conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, attempted murder, fraud, and embezzlement, I sentence you to 15 years in prison. You will serve a minimum of 12 years before being eligible for parole." 15 years. Ikenna would be 50 before he was even eligible for release. "Do either of you wish to make a statement?" the judge asked. Chioma shook her head, still crying. But Ikenna stood. He turned to face Chitty directly. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice was hollow. "I know that doesn't mean anything. I know I've destroyed everything. But, brother, I am sorry. I was jealous, bitter. I felt like I was always in your shadow, and it poisoned me. But that's not an excuse. What I did was evil. And I deserve everything I'm getting." Chitty stared at his younger brother. Once they'd been close. Once they'd been allies. Once, Ikenna had been the person Chitty would have trusted with his life. Now, he was just another betrayer. Another person who'd proven that trust was a weapon used against the trusting. "I forgive you," Chitty said quietly. Ikenna's eyes widened with shock and hope. "But I'll never trust you again. And when you get out of prison in 15 years, stay away from me. You're not my brother anymore. You're just a stranger who shares my blood." Ikenna nodded slowly, then sat back down. The guards led them both away. Chioma was still crying. Ikenna walked with his head down, a broken man heading toward a decade and a half in prison. Outside the courthouse, Chitty faced a barrage of media. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust forward. "Mr. Adebayo, how does it feel to get justice? Are you satisfied with the sentence? Will you ever be able to trust anyone again?" That last question stopped him. He turned to face a reporter who'd asked it, a young woman with kind eyes. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I've been betrayed by 2 fiancées, a wife, and my own brother. At some point, you have to wonder if the problem is you, if you're just fundamentally bad at judging character, or if trust itself is just a trap waiting to spring. But you survived," the reporter pressed. "Twice. That takes incredible strength." "Survival isn't the same as healing," Chitty replied. "I survived. I'm still surviving. But healing? I don't know if that's possible anymore." In the months that followed, Chitty threw himself into work. He restructured his entire company, personally reviewing every employee, every contract, every system. He installed safeguards and oversight mechanisms that would prevent anyone from ever having the kind of access Ikenna had abused. Obiora remained his CFO and closest friend, but their relationship had changed. How could it not? Obiora's sister had tried to murder Chidi. Even though Obiora had been innocent, the stain of family connection remained. You can find another CFO. Obiora said one day, "If having me around reminds you of—" "You're not your sister," Chidi interrupted. "You stood by me. You helped me expose them. You chose me over blood. That means something. But does it mean enough?" Obiora asked quietly, "Do you actually trust me, Chidi? Or are you always going to wonder if I'm plotting something too?" The question hung between them, and honestly, Chidi didn't have a good answer. Ada Adebayo aged 10 years and 6 months. The revelation of Ikena's betrayal had devastated her. She lost one son to prison and nearly lost another to murder. "I keep thinking about where I went wrong," she told Chidi one evening at her compound in Enugu. "Did I favor you too much? Did I make Ikena feel less than? What created that jealousy in him?" "Nothing you did, Mama. Ikena made his own choices. Bad choices. But he's still my son. My baby." Ada wiped her eyes. "I know what he did is unforgivable. But a mother's love doesn't turn off just because her child does evil things." "I know, Mama." "Do you hate him?" Chidi thought about that. "No, I don't hate him. I don't feel much of anything toward him. He's just gone. Dead to me. The brother I loved died tonight. He hired those men to blind me. And Chioma? Same. The woman I married never existed. She was a performance, a character she played. I don't even know who the real Chioma is." Ada took his hand. "My son, I'm worried about you. You survived 2 terrible betrayals. But survival isn't enough. You need to live. You need to let people in again." "How?" Chidi's voice broke. "How do I trust again, Mama? Every time I do, it destroys me. Amara, Choma, Ikena. How many times does someone have to be burned before they stop touching fire? I don't have an answer, my son, but I know that a life without trust is a life without love. And you deserve love." 1 year after the trial, Chidi received a letter from Chioma. She'd been writing to him regularly from prison, but he'd never opened a single letter. They'd accumulated in a drawer in his study, 20, 30, maybe more, on the anniversary of her sentencing. Curiosity finally got the better of him. He opened one. "Chidi, I know you'll probably never read this. I know I have no right to ask for your attention, your forgiveness, your anything. But I need to say these things, even if you never hear them. I was wrong. Not just wrong in what I did, but wrong about everything. I thought I was smart, calculating, playing the game. But I was just cruel. I was callous. I was evil. Every day in here, I think about what I did to you, the pain I caused, the trust one destroyed. You'd already been betrayed once, and I knew that. I knew your history with Amara, and I used it. I became what you needed to heal, only to hurt you worse than she ever did. I don't love Ikena. I never did. I loved what he represented. Freedom from having to pretend. But that's not love. That's just selfishness. The truth is, I don't think I know how to love anyone. I never learned. My family was cold, transactional. My parents stayed together for appearances. I thought marriage was a business arrangement. I thought love was a tool, not a gift. But watching you in that courtroom, seeing the pain in your eyes when you looked at me, I realized what love actually is. It's trust. It's vulnerability. It's giving someone the power to destroy you and believing they won't. I destroyed you, and I can never take that back. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I see what I did now. I see the magnitude of my betrayal. And if I could give anything, my life, my freedom, my soul to undo it, I would. I'm sorry, Chidi. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. Chioma. Chidi read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it back in the drawer with all the others. Then he went to his liquor cabinet, poured himself a drink, and sat alone in his study, staring at nothing. Sorry didn't heal wounds. Sorry didn't restore trust. Sorry was just a word, and words had lost all meaning. 2 years after the sentencing, Chidi stood in his office, looking out at the Lagos skyline. His company was more successful than ever. His wealth had grown. His name was respected in business circles across Africa. But he was alone, truly, deeply alone. He'd tried to date once or twice, but every attempt ended quickly. How do you let someone close when you're constantly waiting for betrayal? How do you trust when everyone you've ever trusted has destroyed you? Obiora entered the office. The quarterly reports are ready for your review. Thank you. Chitty didn't turn from the window. Chitty, are you okay? Define okay. Obiora came to stand beside him. You won, you know. Against Amara. Against Chioma and Ikena. You exposed them all. Justice was served. I know. But victory doesn't feel like I thought it would. Chitty finally turned to face his friend. I thought exposing them would give me closure. Peace. But I just feel empty. Amara took my ability to trust easily. Chioma and Ikena took my ability to trust at all. So what do? I survive. That's what I do. I survive Amara. I survive my wife and brother. I'll survive this too. Chitty's smile was bitter. I'm very good at surviving. But not at living? No, not at living. They stood together in silence, looking out at the city that had witnessed all of Chitty's triumphs and all his destructions. For what it's worth, Obiora said quietly, I'm still here. I'm still your friend. And I'll never betray you. I know. But Obiora, even with you, even knowing you're genuine, I can't fully trust. Because what if I'm wrong again? What if everyone I trust eventually shows me who they really are? Then you'll survive that too. Because that's who you are. A survivor. Chitty nodded slowly. Yeah, a survivor. But as Obiora left and Chitty returned to his empty office, he thought about his mother's words. Survival isn't enough. You need to live. Maybe someday he'd learn how to live again, how to trust again, how to love again. But not today. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some scars are too deep. Some betrayals are too profound. And sometimes the price of surviving is that you're never quite whole again. Chitty Adebayo had been betrayed by his fiancée, his wife, and his brother. He'd survived them all. He'd won every battle. But in winning, he'd lost something irreplaceable. His ability to believe that anyone, anywhere, could love him without trying to destroy him. And that loss, that fundamental brokenness of trust, might be permanent. Unlike his vision, which had miraculously returned, his faith in humanity remained blind, and perhaps it always would be. Epilogue, 5 years later. Chitty Adebayo stood at the window of his penthouse, now 45 years old, watching the Lagos sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and red. His company had expanded across West Africa. His wealth had tripled. He was respected, feared, and admired, and he was still alone. Chioma had been released on parole after serving 8 years. He'd heard she'd moved to Abuja, changed her name, tried to rebuild her life. He felt nothing hearing the news. No anger, no satisfaction, nothing. Ikena was still in prison, with 3 more years before parole eligibility. Ada visited him occasionally, a mother's love persisting despite the evil her son had done. She'd asked Chitty once if he wanted to visit too. He's your brother, she'd said. No, Mama, he's your son, but he's not my brother anymore. The doorbell rang. Chitty wasn't expecting anyone, but his security had let someone through, which meant it was someone on his approved list. He opened the door to find Obiora standing there with a woman Chitty didn't recognize. She was Nigerian, probably in her late 30s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She wore simple clothes and minimal jewelry. Chitty, this is Amaka, Obiora said. She runs a non-profit that helps formerly incarcerated people reintegrate into society. I've been working with her organization on some pro bono legal work. Nice to meet you, Chitty said politely, shaking her hand. Obiora talks about you constantly, Amaka said. He's very proud of your friendship. They chatted for a while. Small talk, nothing heavy. Amaka was intelligent, funny, and genuinely interested in Chitty's work. She asked thoughtful questions and offered insights from her own experience. After she left, Obiora lingered. She's single, he said casually. And she knows your history. I might have told her some things. Not the details, but the broad strokes. She knows you've been hurt. And she's been hurt too. Her ex-husband was abusive. She understands what it's like to be broken, and try to put yourself back together. Obiora? Chitty's voice held a warning. I'm not matchmaking. I'm just introducing you to good people. People who might understand. After Obiora left, Chitty stood at his window again, thinking about Amaka, about her kind eyes and gentle smile, about the possibility, however remote, that maybe, possibly, someday. No, he couldn't do it, couldn't risk it, couldn't give someone else the power to destroy him. But as the sun set completely in darkness fell over Lagos, Chitty realized something. He was already destroyed. Amara, Chioma, and Ikenna had already broken him completely. He had nothing left to lose. And maybe, just maybe, the only way to heal was to risk being broken again. He picked up his phone and texted Obiora. Does Amaka like coffee? Ask her if she'd like to have lunch next week. Something casual. Public. No expectations. The response came immediately. She'll be thrilled. And Chitty? I'm proud of you. Chitty set down his phone and looked at his reflection in the darkened window. A man of 45, wealthy and successful, but scarred. Deeply, permanently scarred. But maybe, possibly not completely broken. Maybe there was still a piece of him that could trust, that could hope, that could try. It would be the hardest thing he'd ever done. Harder than exposing Amara. Harder than documenting Chioma and Ikenna's betrayal. Harder than surviving their cruelty. Because this time, he'd have to choose to be vulnerable. Choose to risk his heart. Choose to believe that not everyone would destroy him. And that choice, that terrible, beautiful choice, might be the bravest thing he'd ever do. The sun had set. The darkness was complete. But tomorrow, it would rise again. And maybe, just maybe, so would Chitty Adebayo. The end of one story. The beginning of another. Sometimes survival is just the first step. Like and subscribe to AfricanTales by Zion if this story moved you. Comment. Do you think Chitty should try again with Amaka? Should he risk his heart one more time? Let us know what you think.